Schmecka gobla gobla gurfy wurfy. We're talking a Muppet Family Christmas. Hit it. It was 1987. Full House debuted on ABC. Aretha Franklin was voted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Final Fantasy released its first game for Nintendo. And Jim Henson created a perfect Secret Wars, Crisis on Infinite Earth style Christmas. I'm your host, Jerry D, with another episode of Totally Rad Christmas, the podcast that talks all things Christmas in the 80s. Toys, movies, special music fads. If it was gnarly during Christmas in the 80s, we got it covered. Now, joining me is a very special guest. You'll know him as the host and Muppet expert from the Tubular Advent Calendar House podcast, Mike Westfall. Mike, how's it going?
Going great. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on, man. It's always a pleasure to have you. Your podcast is great. So every time I'm listening to it, it's just I'm drawn back to that era, and your guys are always so funny, your guests, and you keep it lively. It's great.
I'm very fortunate to have met a lot of really fun people through podcasting, and it's great to get them back every so often. So
it shows because you always, whoever's a guest that week, you always have a great rapport, and your banter back and forth is amazing, and of course it's funny as heck. So that's always like my number one for a podcast. Is it funny? If it's funny, yeah, I'll listen to it.
Hey, all right.
So let me ask you, because I know you are kind of a Muppets guy, and I love the Muppets too, but what is your history with the special?
With the special, I remember watching it the first night it aired. I've always been, like, Muppets has just always been around in my life. One of my earliest memories, not just of Christmas, but of life, is when I'm 4 years old, my parents are decorating the Christmas tree. Mm-hmm. And the John Denver and the Muppets album is playing, the 12 Days of Christmas. And I'm jumping on the couch, singing along with Miss Piggy. And that's one of the earliest memories of just my existence. One of the first movies I saw with my wife was Muppets from Space. So nice. I kind of hold that in higher regard than everybody else.
Yeah.
I've been watching Sesame Street since before I could form memories of watching Sesame Street. And the Muppet Show's always been there. I remember my parents having a poster for the Muppet movie, so it's their fault, I think. So every time there was a new Muppet special, it was an event in my house. So
right on.
I love this special like Big Bird loves shredded wheat and cranberry sauce. It's my absolute favorite.
That's a lot of love right there. It's funny because same thing. I remember growing up, always watching the Muppet Show. Of course, back then it was in syndication, and I remember all the Muppet movies. Somehow, I've only caught the end of this one every time it aired, back when it first aired. And I never saw the whole thing, and then I kind of forgot about it until about 10 years ago. And all of a sudden, I rediscovered it, and now it's like I wish it had been a part of my life all those years because it's just so amazing.
Yeah, it hasn't been part of my wife's life every year. But I mean, again, she's all on board with all of the Muppet stuff that I love. We live in just outside of Orlando, Florida. So we live near Walt Disney World. So they used to have an attraction outside of the Hall of Presidents where it was great moments in Muppet history or great moments in American history with the Muppets. And
that's
the
cool.
First time she took me that, like, she just took pictures of me smiling.
That's awesome. I wish they had something here in Texas like that. No, nothing really. Nothing Muppety I can think of, unfortunately. But, the one cool thing was that we could always turn on the TV and Muppets would be there in some way, shape, or form. And, of course, Fraggle Rock growing up was one of my favorites as well.
My father-in-law and I bonded over Fraggle Rock. And
Really?
He had it on one of the first times I was over her house, and we just sat and watched it and was like, this is going to be okay. And it has been.
Right on. Oh, man. Okay, I have to ask, did it bother you? Because I know you talked about it a little bit in your the episode you did on your show, but does it really bother you that the John Denver, when they're singing the 12 Days of Christmas, that it's just so different from,
that special?
From the special.
I don't think it bothered me. I noticed it, but the album version is the definitive version for me, just because came first.
Yeah, same here. I heard that one first, and I've played it for my kids. I don't know how many times, but when I saw the special, I mean, it just bugged like the stuffings out of me. I just, was like, that's not who comes next. And
it was a bit of a shock, I remember, but it never bugged me. It was just like, okay, this is this version. But that special's a trip, man.
It really is, yeah.
It's an hour long, but it feels like a month.
Yeah. Yes. Oh,
Things
man.
in the 70s, especially just that variety show format, a lot of the times it would just drag because it was a different generation.
Yeah. And it's different from like the Muppet Show where, you have all this silliness and zaniness. And I mean, there's just something that works about that, compared to like the John Denver one. And I think a lot of that has to do with John Denver's just his personality, and the subject matter. I mean, something about it just didn't jive like the other ones did.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I still remember when Christopher Reeve hosted and when the Star Wars guys came on. And oh, man. I'm still waiting for seasons 4 and 5. Come on, Disney.
Yeah.
Got to do it, Disney.
They had a whole presentation on it during one of the conversions.
Oh,
they
man.
showed it up on the big screen. Season 4 coming soon, and they had Gonzo, and it just never came.
What a heartbreak. I mean, don't they even mention it? I think Walter even mentions it on like the extras of the Muppets movie that came out in, what was it, 2011?
Yes, I think you're right. I think I remember that. Good old Walter.
So when a Muppet's saying, come on, release it. I don't know. But anyway, so a Muppet Family Christmas. This one is incredible. So the premise essentially is that Fozzie takes all the Muppets to his mom's house to surprise her because he thinks she's going to be all alone. And of course, she has her own plans. She was going to rent the house and go to Malibu. And then antics ensue. And then there's like this cool, like I said earlier, Crisis on Infinite Earths type thing. It's like an Avengers style team up with the Muppets and Sesame Street and Fraggles. And I mean, did it just like blow your mind when you first saw it?
Absolutely. The only times I've ever remember seeing that many Muppets on the screen at one time is the end of the Muppet movie. And a year before they had a special, it was celebrating 30 years of the Muppets, which is now older than 30 years. It was like a banquet style almost, where they're all sitting in a banquet hall having dinner, and they were all kind of there, and everybody was wearing formal suits. It was cute. But then there was this. This was more huddled together because they all have to kind of cram in the farmhouse.
Yep.
And again, my friend Carl and I counted. We ended up there were 105 different characters in that farmhouse.
5. Oh my gosh!
And I think that included Jim Henson at the end washing the dishes. But
okay. He's Muppet-like.
That's a lot of Muppets. That's a lot of people's arms hanging up in the air.
Yeah. Oh man, I can't even imagine like how close. I mean, they were practically right on top of each other for a lot of that. Oh, yeah. I've been in that situation, and it's not pleasant.
Yep. Yeah, I come from a big family too, and our Christmas parties just get crowded.
Yes, they do. Oh man. So Fozzie and the gang, it opens up, of course, they're driving to his mom's house, and they're singing We Need a Little Christmas, and of course they change the lyrics a little bit, Fozzie, we're all in a hurry kind of thing, but right away it just like hits you in, as Tis the Podcast says, it hits you in the Christmas feels,
It just does. That was the first time I ever heard that song in
really
that special. So every time I hear any other version of it, I forget that Fozzie honking his horn on his car isn't part of the song.
No, it's like, really not.
Oh, that's right. That was the thing they added.
Yes.
But every time I hear it, I still have to make it back.
Oh, man, we got to go Christmas caroling sometime.
I'm in.
I'll totally pause for it. No worries.
All right.
Yeah, so they're driving, and of course, right away, just starts off super Christmassy. And well, you know what? Before we even get into it, this is one of those specials that I gotta mention. It suffers from. I mean, it's like notorious for being like just edited to pieces. You know,
yeah.
Like there's I don't even know how many different versions out there where they take this out and they take that out.
5.
And yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And some of it, yes, was because of time for the different network, but most of it was just because of rights issues, you know?
Yeah, between the songs and the whole Disney acquisition of the Muppets, they only bought the Muppet Show.
The Muppets, yeah.
Sesame Street is still owned by its own company. Fraggle Rock stayed with Henson. So it was a lot of back and forth, especially in the 90s and the early 2000s, that the relationship between all of those entities was very cold. And only in recent years has it started to warm up a bit. But
yeah, my understanding was that he actually approached Disney earlier to try to sell the Muppets to them. And the whole, you know, his whole, canon, I suppose. And it kind of just fizzled out, and so it wasn't until later that they actually just, like you said, only took him up on the Muppets.
Right.
I wonder what it would have been like if they had done it. You know,
I'm glad that they didn't also get Sesame Street. That needed to stay separate because of the kind of program it is and the kind of service that it does. So I'm glad that that's its own thing.
Yeah, it's more public access. Let's focus on children and learning, kind of its deal. And there is, you're right, there is something to be said for that. Like they just released a couple of weeks ago that thing on COVID-19, and it was like
I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, it was like a whole. I mean, most of the time there's like doctors and things like that actually talking about it. But the Sesame Street gang interjects, and there's a couple of little skits here and there, and then they'll ask questions about it, and it's like a video conferencing kind of thing, and so it's pretty neat. Of course, because of that, they're doing. Like a Cookie Monster has his own little snack chat. I don't know if you've seen those. Those are awesome. Snack chat, snackity chat. Yeah. It's like the show where we snack more than we chat or something like that. And, they do that whole thing. And it's so you're right. It's geared towards a different audience. And I think that it should stay that way. But part of me also kind of wishes they could all just join together so we could get like a full version of the special finally.
I do, but thankfully, I have a full version, and thankfully, enough people have uploaded the original airing on YouTube.
Yes,
where you can actually see the
commercials and all. Yeah,
so that's the one that I always kind of gravitate toward because I just love watching those commercials. My friends in college had a VHS copy with commercials, so we would watch that. So It's like double back memories for me.
Right on. Yeah. We have an old Betamax tape.
Wow.
Yeah. Full of, not of this special, but full of like Muppet shows and Thundercats and stuff like that. And every once in a while we'll pop it in. It like barely works, but it works.
Wear it out.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to go, but I'm okay with that. So yeah, the Muppets, they're driving to Fozzie's house. And Doc arrives, and he's renting the place for the Christmas break, and Fozzie's mom is going to go to Malibu, and she took surfing lessons and everything. She's like so excited when suddenly, Fozzie shows up with all those Muppet friends. But Fozzie's mom she's a pretty great lady to kind of just let them all stay and cancel her plans. And
absolutely, she's a classic hospitable mom. I feel like mine would do the same thing.
But poor Doc.
He warmed up to it, to his credit.
He did. You're right.
More certainly than I would have.
Oh, for real. If I was planning like just a nice quiet getaway, I would have been upset.
Yeah.
First world problems. But,
really. You can rent a farmhouse for Christmas to have a nice dry Christmas. You're doing all right.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, of course, this begins the whole running gag of the falling on the icy patch, which is how you always end your show, I've noticed.
Yes, I try to work that into everyday conversation when I can. It's difficult living in the South, but you know how it is.
Yeah, we don't get very many icy patches here.
Nope.
No, because when we do, people forget how to drive, and then it's a mess after that. But anyway, so yeah, one by one as they're coming in, you can see each one kind of slipping and falling on the icy patch, and so that's always been really cool to me. And of course, Doc gets all mad, and then we realize that Piggy's not with them because she calls. And Animal picks up the phone and he's like so excited, he's like, give me presents. And then he answers it and he's like, oh, Pig. And he just like throws the floor. He just throws the phone down on the floor. It's so great. It's like, okay, I guess you don't like her, but I mean, you really don't like her.
I don't think it's that he doesn't like her. It's just that she's not present.
Could be
I don't know
that,
if she was expecting Santa on the phone or what.
I don't know. It's Animal. Who knows what's going on? But I guess he's not in control at this part yet. So.
No. Far off from that still.
Yeah, so it makes sense. So, of course, she set up her own photo shoot, which is like such a Piggy thing to do.
Yep.
And I forgot about this eensy little photo shoot I just set up. And I'm not going to do Piggy's voice because I'm terrible at Piggy's voice. But
teensy weensy little. Oh, I can't do it either.
It's so hard. And my falsetto is not bad, but it's not Piggy. So no. I'm going to refrain. And then I love this special because we get like a whole bunch of different subplots. It's like classic like Jerry Jewell. He just it moves. It's real snappy. It's like joke after joke. But then there's like a lot of subtleties too that you kind of have to watch it a few times to really pick up on everything,
Yeah, you do. I like everybody kind of coming in and getting settled and everyone having their one line. And then here comes Sam the Eagle going, why am I here?
What? That's like my favorite joke out of the whole thing.
I love Sam the Eagle.
Yeah, Sam Eagle is so funny. Of course, I love on Muppet Christmas Carol when he's like, it's the American way. And then it's the British way. It's classic. Oh, man. But yeah, that's like my favorite line. Why am I here? Oh man, but yeah, so we have we have the whole turkey. The Swedish chef invites the turkey to come because he wants to cook the turkey, and the turkey thinks, so on the one hand he's like trying to avoid being eaten, but he's also trying to like hook up with Camilla.
Yeah, so he kind of finds Camilla later in the special, and he's like, "Well, I guess I'm staying now." And he's like this cool cat beatnik turkey too. He's got the dark sunglasses and the hat,
the Kangol hat. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. So there's that subplot, and of course we have the Piggy's missing subplot, and then we have the Fozzie goes outside and makes a snowman, and it's like the perfect comedy duo subplot. I mean, there's like all these threads that kind of interweave, and they're just great. And of course, more people come, so Doc has to go find more spaces for them to stay, and that kind of whole thing. And so it's like one thread, and Jerry Jewell just really like weaves them together really nicely.
Yeah, it's all very, very seamless, and it all makes sense in that sort of zany, everything's happening in the background kind of sense that they've always tried to have with the Muppet Show, and even with Sesame Street.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, one of the parts I always loved was when Kermit and Robin are like singing their song. They sing like this nice little sweet Jingle Bells, and then all of a sudden Electric Mayhem comes in, and they're just like rocking out on Jingle Bell Rock, and
they have a whole stage set up. They brought in a rig of lights.
Well,
where was that in the truck?
Yes, exactly. They must have been sitting on it or something. I don't know.
Like a Mary Poppins truck.
Well, it is the Muppets, so who knows? But someone pointed out to me one time that it's like anytime things get like too overly sentimental, like it's immediately broken up with like another joke.
Yes.
And this is like a perfect example of it. It's a
perfect balance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they won't get too let you go too saccharine, but okay, you know. So yeah, they're doing their thing. They're outside, and Rolf shows up, and Rolf, he gives another one of the great lines, and that's another thing I love about this special. It's like so quotable. You know, Ralph's doing his thing, and he's, I'm exhausted. You know, that whole joke about the chasing cars.
I was following the truck, and boy, am I exhausted.
Yeah. And Fozzie like, oh, I love she loves canine humor. And
go in and tell Mom. And that's how they keep the story moving, too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That gets Rolf inside. Rolf interacts with Sprocket, Doc's dog. Jim Henson doing Rolf and just barking. It's just like, oh, wolf, wolf. Did you see Jim Henson? Have you ever seen him on the Arsenio Hall show?
No, I missed his appearance on that one. I'll have to check it out.
Right before he died.
Oh, wow.
He was on the Arsenio Hall show, and he brings Rolf out, and, the audience is all doing, hoo, and he brings up Rolf. He's like, yeah, wolf, wolf. Yeah. It's great.
Oh, man. It's just so funny because Sprocket's really there, like barking, real barks. And then, yeah, bark, bark, wolf, wolf. And of course, Doc's, don't you hate it when you can't speak the language? And...
Oh, that's right. I always forget that part because I'm laughing too hard at Rolf.
At Rolf, yeah. It just doesn't make any sense. But I just love it because, he kind of communicates with Sprocket. So how does he not speak the language? He knows about Fraggles from Sprocket. So, I mean, I just don't get it. But
yeah, I don't know.
It's all right.
He took the 2-week course.
There you go. He knows. He knows conversational.
He also gets mail for Gobo.
Well, that's true. Yeah, so you're right about that. He
knows the word Fraggle, and then Sprocket's ears perk up. It's like, I know who that is. So maybe there's.
So this, I guess, takes place before their meeting. The last 2 episodes of Fraggle Rock, or the last episode of Fraggle Rock. Then
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Although one of the things that always did kind of make me wonder is how did the Fraggles show up there? Like, how far away is Doc's place from the Ma Bear's country house?
It's got to be close if the
Fraggles are still there.
Renting it. Yeah, I don't remember where in America Doc's supposed to be.
Yeah, I don't either. But it always just made me wonder. It's like, whoa, the Fraggles are there too? How do they do that? Of course, I guess it's their holiday. That's just a little something I always wondered.
No, that's a good question. I always just, Underground Network.
Yeah.
Whole world underneath us.
Yeah. Oh, kind of a scary thought. Mole Man or something.
Well, if it's anything like Fraggle Rock, we should be okay.
Yeah, I agree. Those doozers are pretty cute. They'll keep it up.
Indeed.
But yeah, so another one of my favorite subplots is Fozzie and the Snowman, because I mean they're like this great, vaudevillian style comedy duo, Like one sets him up and the other one knocks it out of the park there. And
it makes sense because Fozzie builds this snowman and it comes to life through the magic of Christmas, I guess. And he just starts singing Sleigh Ride with them. And then they go on this joke bit and they're just, Fozzie finally found a partner that melds with him. It just took, going out and building
and actually creating one. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why.
But it's so funny because they're killing it, and even Doc, he's just kind of out there just hanging out and he's laughing at it too. So it must be pretty good, and that's when we get the, the whole, I'm a snowman,
What's a snowman? Nothing. What's a snow with you?
Ah. Oh man, it's so great. I kind of miss being able to go to something like that. You can go to comedians and they're funny and stuff, but nothing like that I would want to take my kids to, and I think they'd really enjoy like that kind of vaudevillian, let's go stand up and just say a joke after joke after joke kind of thing.
Right.
But, at least we have the Muppets to kind of get through that.
Nowadays, it's always like they do something else. Like they're also a magician and the magician's funny.
Yes, exactly.
We took our kids it was like a sit-down dinner show thing where they have pans of pizza and salad and stuff. And here's a magician who's also funny.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I'll have to look that up here. Yeah, I don't really get to go into the city much, although I guess I'm still technically part of DFW, but I bet they'd have something like that around here. I don't know. But anyway, so Fozzie's all excited about his new partner, and so he goes in to tell Kermit, and of course Kermit gets called away again, and so he doesn't get to deal with that. And there's like a whole thing where the Swedish chef is upset because there's like chickens and all that kind of stuff.
Rats and chickens.
Rats and chickens, yeah.
Yep.
So they go up, and then that's when like the turkey begins really getting on Camilla.
Yeah.
And he has like a funny joke, something about like her drumsticks. You know.
Oh yeah, I forget. But he invites her outside for a little scratching and squawking.
Yeah.
And that's when Gonzo comes in and breaks it up, and they almost come to blows.
Yeah. I'll rip off your waddle. Oh man, I still don't know how that whole Gonzo and Camilla thing works, but you know, it works.
If the frog and a pig can get together, then
yeah, well, yeah,
Gonzo.
You're right about that. There's a game that we played about a year ago called Disney Heroes Battle Mode, and it's just like on our phones. And my daughter and I kind of played for a bit, and you're different Disney heroes, and you make your own team, and there's like different levels, and you know, you can battle and stuff like that. But they released the Muppets about, I don't know, half a year ago or so, like around November-ish. And so they had Kermit, or no, not Kermit yet. They had Gonzo and Piggy and Animal. And Gonzo always had like 3 chickens as like one of his attacks. Like they would all come out. And of course, Piggy would, karate kick and karate chop and all that stuff. But and Animal was more like a support guy where he'd play his drums, and then your guys would attack faster and stuff like that. But I don't know. I always thought it was kind of cool that they incorporated like the chickens into it.
Shoots them out of cannon.
Yeah, I wish he'd kind of be shot out of a cannon for real, but oh well.
Yeah.
It was a fun little game, but we start to get into like the home movies, and this is where they also drew in the Muppet Babies from Muppet Takes Manhattan and like the Muppet Babies cartoon. And I always thought that was so cool, the Muppet Babies and Muppet Takes Manhattan. Of course, when I saw this years ago, I was like, oh, great, that's perfect. It works it all in, And it was so cool because, you see these kids and I don't know which one's canon and which one's not in the Muppets universe. I'm still confused about that. But if we take this to be, canon, then yes, they all went to like daycare together, I suppose.
Right. They keep it kind of oblivious, I guess is the word I'm thinking of. They keep that line blurred because Muppets Take Manhattan, Piggy's like, imagine if we knew each other when we were little. And that's what sets up this Muppet Baby scene. And then they make the cartoon based on that scene. Mm-hmm. So,
which I used to love that
this
cartoon.
Comes around and no, it's actually real, which is fun. But I always enjoy seeing the actual Muppet versions of them.
Me too.
It's just a cool thing to be able to see. It's like, oh, they made these.
Yeah. I always prefer it's like I love Frosty the Snowman. I do, the Rankin Bass special, but I like Frosty better when he was in Christmas in July.
Okay.
And he's there in the full animagic puppet, just like Rudolph and Santa. And something about that, to me, it just makes him more special because I guess, it's 3D. It feels more real, It's more tangible.
He's got the yellow scarf. It makes it pop more.
Yeah, and his magic hat turned from black to orangish yellow as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always like to think of it's like a whole separate universe, like there's a multiverse of Rankin Bass, and that's why at the end of Rudolph, he's like grown, but in Rudolph's Shiny New Year, he's got the small horns again. So.
Yeah, I covered that one too. When you get to that episode of my show, we talk about that.
Yeah, it used to bother me, and so it wasn't until I started reading like all these multiversal, comic books that I'm like, oh, okay, they're separate universes, and it's the only way I can take it.
The actual reason they did that is because they didn't keep the models when they made the original models for Rudolph. They weren't thinking, oh, we're going to make a whole bunch more of these and this is going to be super successful. So they didn't take good care of them, and they ended up selling a bunch. And somebody kept it in an attic, and they had an original Rudolph and original Santa, and that ended up on that Antique Roadshow years later.
Yeah.
And they were legit, but they're not in great condition. But now they're like in a traveling exhibit. So
yeah, they've been restored as best they could.
Right.
But yeah, and then each one of those specials also was financed by a different company. It was like sponsored by, and right. So of course they had their own spin on them, and so there's all that. But to just to make it make sense to me, I have to think of it as, oh well, this is Universe 1, and here's Earth 2, and here's Earth. I mean, that's the only way I can
have
think
your
of
own headcanon.
Exactly. Yeah. But at least same thing with the Muppets. And someone once told me that, like, in their opinion, whenever they played a character that wasn't canon, but whenever they were themselves, it was. I don't know if that really works out, because I haven't tried to make it work out yet. But for now, it's a pretty good working theory, I think.
Yeah, that's clever. I like that.
So Muppets Christmas Carol, they're clearly playing characters. So, but yeah. Anyway, so of course the Swedish Chef and the well, actually before this, the Sesame Street gang arrives. They're like caroling.
Yeah, this was right again. It's the Turkey and Gonzo are about to get to blows. Kermit kind of breaks them up. It's like, thinks me hear carolers.
Oh yeah, the
and
classic
here comes
line.
The Sesame Street gang.
Yeah. Oh man, of course they do their thing. And what I always thought was really cool was that Elmo wasn't really famous yet. He was just Baby Monster.
Well, it was after Elmo became Elmo, but it was early days of Elmo.
Yeah, it was like, wasn't it pre-Kevin Clash?
No, it's not before Kevin Clash. He had started voicing Elmo at that point. This is 87. He started in, I think, 1984 or 85.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But again, it was very early, so he hadn't blown up as a thing.
I see. Okay.
No lines in this.
No, it completely just nothing. I always thought it was before him just due to that fact, but I guess that makes sense. Yeah. But yeah, so, but they have like some really obscure ones back there. Like, was it Sully and I think his name's
Sully,
Biff.
Yeah.
Of course you have like Sherlock Hemlock and is Forgetful Jones there? I think I saw him.
I don't remember. I have a list somewhere, but I didn't pull it up, but he might be there.
That's okay.
I think the most obscure one I saw was Oscar the Grouch's Puerto Rican cousin Osvaldo.
Osvaldo, yes. I did read that. Yeah. And so I didn't notice him. And then I went back, and when I was looking it up, I saw his name, and I thought, really? He's in there? And so then I had to go back, and sure enough, he's there in the back. Yeah.
Yep.
Puerto Rican. But yeah, so they're caroling, and everybody's like, "Hey, come on in!" And of course, Doc's like, "More people!" And
then he's the one who goes up to build bunk beds.
Well, it was either that or he was going to have to give up his hammock.
Oh well,
in the attic. So
yeah, that's right. That was his idea. Sprocket, get me a hammer.
So yeah, exactly. Oh, but before that, he meets Ernie and Bert, and they go through that whole little small talk bit. Like, hey,
Doc starts with the letter D.
Why? Yes.
Yes, and yes starts with the letter Y.
True.
And true starts with the letter T.
Hey, what is this?
Where we come from, this is small talk. What was great about Jim Henson is he was never afraid to get meta like that. Thank you. Yes,
yeah. I think that's why I like Community so much, because it's really meta too. And I mean, this is just, it's so, this is like where it all started, the Muppets, they always did that. And I mean, even sometimes on Sesame Street, they'd kind of go meta as well. But
every once in a while they would, but they knew where to kind of draw the line because they didn't
right, because it was more for kids.
Children. I remember there was something I read where Mr. Rogers wanted to have Big Burn on, but he wanted to have Carol Spinney on and like show the kids how the costume worked. And Carol Spinney vetoed it. Like, let's not ruin that yet for as young as your audience and our audience is. Let's not go there.
Yeah, that's cool.
So he just had Big Bird on the show instead.
Oh, I gotcha. I don't remember that episode because I used to watch Mr. Rogers a lot too. But
faintly remember it. I don't remember. Like, I can picture it, but I couldn't tell you anything about it except for that article I remember reading.
It's funny because it seems like a lot of the things I remember are mostly about He-Man and Thundercats.
it's all selective memory, and it's all starting to get blurry for me.
The more I think about it, it's like, oh, okay, no, there was G.I. Joe and Voltron. But I know I saw like every single episode of the Muppets. I don't remember as much as I wish.
And again, it's that variety show format where sometimes it was rapid fire and other times it just dragged.
Oh yes, like the very last one, the finale of their first season, where they had like those weird puppeteer guys come on. I mean, that one was just, like the choreography kind of thing. I mean, it was
and it was cool at the time, and it was for a different audience. It was for a different generation, I guess.
Yeah, when I went back and saw it, I was like, okay, next, and so I just put in the next disc. But I do remember seeing, it in syndication. I just don't remember liking it. But
right.
But like you said, different time. So the turkey, and he's into it now with the chef. The chef like finally figures out that, okay, no, gobbler gobbler, and and the turkey's like, oh, all right, yes, I'm the turkey. I'm the turkey. But wait, get a load of this, and he like opens a door, and it's Big Bird.
The crack of thunder.
Yes,
is my favorite part.
Yes,
the old castle thunder.
Oh
stuff.
Man, yeah, it's like dark shadows or something, just and it's so great. And what I really love is that the chef just like throws the pan over his shoulder. Like he knows there's no way it's fitting, so he just throws it over his shoulder.
I didn't even think of it like that. I just remember thinking he was in shock of giant bird.
Yeah, I mean, that's just, to me, that always stood out, because he's just like there's no way he's gonna fit in this. But
that's funny. Yeah.
So of course we get to another funny bit that I always liked, which is right after that they're watching the news, and it's that Muppet the
newscaster,
the Muppet newscaster.
Yes.
Yeah. And he like anytime he says something, of course, if it can be turned into a physical bit, it always is. And so in this case, it's the barometers are falling sharply, and so they start to fall. Yeah. Oh no.
That was always one of my favorite pieces. And it's like, that's
one thing,
what got me into just dad joke humor right away.
It's definitely dad joke territory there. Yes. But what I really love is that as soon as that happens, then they cut straight to like Scooter, who's like laughing at him. I don't know if you ever noticed that. Like Scooter's just like,
oh yeah,
it's like, wait, what?
Then he glances out the window. It's like, oh, he's right. It's really coming down out there.
And of course, the count then starts to count and all that stuff. But I always liked that, Kermit's worried and Doc's like, oh, that's one worried frog. And so then, the count is like,
one worried frog. And then Robin's he's like, not the only one.
That's two
worried frogs. And there's that canned thunder sound again.
Exactly. And it's so brilliant the way they did that. And again, they're kind of getting real intense and building up the suspense, and then all of a sudden, oh, let's break it up with a joke. He does that so masterfully, and the Muppets, they acted it out. Their performers just made it so seamless. It's fantastic. Let's see. Then there's a couple more, not as important things where Janice bakes the cookies and Cookie Monster like just tears into them, and of course Animal is like, "He my kind of fella."
That was such a great joke.
It really was.
Especially because even as I was 7 when this came out, and I could already figure out that, hey, there's only a small group of puppeteers who are doing all the voices of this.
Right.
That's the only reason. I mean, like Fozzie and Bert sound alike, Cookie Monster and Animal sound alike, so there's this joke.
Yeah.
So I was already in on that part of it.
But what always bothered me about Cookie Monster is that he always wasted so many cookies. And I know, of course, why now, but, as he's shoveling them in his face, like just so many cookies would just be falling out. I'm like, what are you doing? You're not eating them.
Right. It's on one hand, it's a very nice physical effect.
It is, yeah.
On the other hand, it's just, you're dropping a lot, man.
Well, as a kid, it used to bother me because, when I couldn't have a cookie, I was kind of like living vicariously through him. And
Oh, man.
So it's like, oh man,
you could have been sharing that.
Yeah, I could have eaten that, dude. So there's that whole little bit, and then we get into the next segment, which is another one of my favorite. I mean, this whole special is really like my favorites. It's so hard to pick just one spot, but like we get into their whole "Twas the Night Before Christmas" little play that they put on, and it's so great because of course Bert doesn't want to come out because he lost the coin toss, and so now he has to play Mama. You know.
Spoiler alert, we might be coming back to that later.
Oh, all right. Now I'm very intrigued. So Ernie comes out, they start acting out the night before Christmas, and Bert comes out, and it cuts to like another one of my favorite jokes where, Grover comes out and he's wearing the mouse ears. Yes. And he's got the bowl with the spoon in it, and he makes it like a point to show that he is not stirring.
Note how the hand never touches the spoon. In his little dramatic, loved Grover growing up.
Grover was one of my favorites, especially when he was Super Grover.
Oh yeah.
I actually had a stuffed Super Grover, and I took that thing with me like everywhere. I mean, he was just so cool. I wish I could find. I mean, I'm sure they got to have some somewhere.
They do. We have one. We have a newer one.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because mostly, at least here, it's mostly just Elmo and Cookie Monster, and of course they have like the small 7-inch ones that are stuffed. And my son, when he was smaller, I mean, he loved Cookie. That was his favorite. Like Cookie, and so we got him the Cookie Monster. We got him one with it. He's got like a cookie in his hand, and he put it in his mouth, and he just kind of like, mom, nice robotic kind of a thing. So he likes that, and Elmo were like his two favorites, of course. But for me, it was always Grover. Grover and the Count. I always liked the Count too.
Okay. Yeah. For me, it was Grover, and I had a soft spot for Ernie and Bert.
Well, yeah. But my dad had some puppets from the 70s of Ernie and Bert.
Oh, and I had those too. They're kind of like hard rubber.
Yes. Yep, and they were hard to like move.
Yeah, I had Ernie and Bert, and I think I had Roosevelt Franklin.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's super cool. No, we only had Ernie and Bert, and my dad would do the voices. And so when my daughter was little, we'd FaceTime with him, and he'd like just pull it out, and he's like, "Hey, Bert," and so he'd have like a whole little conversation, and she'd want to, like we'd call again the next day, and she's like, "Where's Ernie?" And so my dad would have to make up an excuse why he wasn't there or something.
Like, good work, Dad. Now you're going to have to do that every time.
Exactly. It's like, you forgot all about kids, man. It's been too long. We grew up. But yeah, so they go through their play, and it comes to another great Sam Eagle line. I think it's like his only other line in the special, where they reveal that Santa is played by a 2-headed monster. Yep. And Sam Eagle gives that great line, "Is nothing sacred."
I love Sam the Eagle because he's just this stuffy, straight-laced character, but he still hangs out with all the Muppets.
Yes, exactly.
He immediately is there to point out, you're all weirdos. But he doesn't ever leave. Like, he's always game for whatever they're up for. He always ends up going, even if he doesn't know why he's there. He's always there.
Yes. It's always, you get that feeling like he's always just trying to bring them up to his level, and he just fails miserably. Except maybe with Wayne and Wanda. I don't know. But
yeah. Wow, Wayne and Wanda.
I always remember that. Wayne and Wanda. He'd introduce them. And yeah, so there was that whole bit. And of course, Miss Piggy tries to make her way. I think her limo gets stuck or something, and so she
got stuck in a snowbank.
Yes, yeah, and so she has to take a cab, which later on also something happens to her, and she gets like a whole face full of mud, I think.
Yep. This is why I don't miss snow at all, because I remember having to drive through it, and it wasn't fun. One of my first jobs out of college was for a news radio station. It was the one that would call all the snow closings. So I would have to stay overnight in the city. It was in Philadelphia. So I would have to stay in a hotel for the night, and then I would be there at 4:00 in the morning taking all the school closing calls.
Oh my gosh.
And then when I got back to my car at the train station parking lot. It was the only one there, and the snow plows have already been through the rest of the parking lot, and there's this mountain of snow on my car. So it would take me an hour and a half just to clear it all off,
so that you could
get in the
out.
car, and so I can get home. And it was a nightmare, and I don't miss snow anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see that. I'm from South Texas, so growing up, the only snow we ever got was like little flurries one time when I was in high school. And I remember I was in band, and, the flurries started. And of course, nothing happened. They didn't like stick or anything.
Right.
And so, but everyone was like so excited. Whoa, it's snowing. And so we stopped playing and we like ran out. And then I didn't see snow until, years later after I'd graduated college and I was living in Houston. And then of course it snowed here a couple of times, but nothing like that. Like nothing like that, at most we'd get like an inch.
Okay. Yeah, I've been through a few blizzards, and one day we'll get the kids up to see snow.
That's what we keep saying. And my daughter keeps begging it to happen on Christmas. And it just, it's Texas.
Yeah, that's
a
tricky conversation to have. It's like, we can go up for Christmas, but that may not happen.
Yeah,
My
exactly.
oldest, when she was a year old, saw flurries that she doesn't remember when we were up there, but that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think my daughter, when she was 2 and one or 2, I don't remember. Yeah. But there was snow for a little bit, but it was gone by the next morning. Yeah.
We took one picture of like just the 3 little flurries that landed on the step, and that's all the evidence we have that you've actually seen snow.
Oh man, poor baby. But yeah, you're right. I have no desire to have my car snowed in, so I'm okay. But so it's like so cold that the snowman comes in. And
can I come in and warm up? Yeah. Oh, that part was great.
But then, so finally, Kermit's like ready to go to listen to their bit, and Statler and Waldorf end up
are there somehow.
Yeah, they weren't. I don't know how they got there, but it's just Muppet magic kind of a thing. I guess they traveled by map.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, they come and visit me every Christmas. You weren't supposed to be here.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So they would have showed up, and what? She just wouldn't have been there, I guess.
I guess not. It was just like, all right, back home we go.
Oh man, can you even imagine? They'd started like, how much more would they have taken that out on Fozzie?
Yeah. They'd find a way to make it his fault.
Yeah, for real, exactly. But so they step on his jokes, like all they're doing their thing. They step on his jokes, the holy smoke bit and and all that. And then of course I might be doing this part later, but
all right.
So they're doing all this, and of course the snowman starts to melt, and they're not killing it the way they killed it outside. So the snowman decides, he's going to go wait out on the porch. And that's when we get into the Swedish Chef and Big Bird bit.
Yeah.
And it's like this really sweet thing where, the Swedish Chef, he's like ready to cook Big Bird, but Big Bird, being who he is like, oh, I bet you miss your family. Oh, that's terrible, Big Bird. But anyway, he's like, you're from Sweden. You're away from your family. I bet, you probably miss them and you get lonely. And so here, I made you some, it was a
chocolate covered
bird seed. That's what it was. Yeah.
Breakfast of champions.
Yes, exactly. Well, you know what? I'm actually kind of curious to see what it tastes like.
So am I. Every time they would
yes,
it looked like it might be good as like a cereal or something.
Yes, exactly. Just pour some milk on it and just kind of.
It'll be fine.
Exactly. Maybe add some strawberries. I don't know. Ooh. But so yeah, this chef is like so touched that he decides he's only going to serve shredded wheat and cranberry sauce, which happens to be Big Bird's favorite. So
of course.
Oh man. So that disaster is kind of averted right there. And so Doc decides he's going to go check for Miss Piggy, and he leaves. And then that's when we get the Fraggles. Right, I think.
Yes, Robin calls him down to the basement. I think I found a Fraggle hole. Can we go explore it? So in they go. It happens to be a frog-sized hole in Fozzie's basement.
Naturally, we all have frog-sized holes in our basements. Well, I'm from Texas. We don't have basements,
Yeah,
but
we
still.
don't have basements. I had a rat-sized hole in my garage, but we patched that.
Oh, you should have checked it for Fraggles first.
No,
Anyway,
it's
so
just outside. So
yeah,
if they were in there, they hid very well.
very well. Yeah, maybe just doozer size, but
Maybe.
so yeah, they find the Fraggles, and of course it's the main ones.
Yep.
Wembley and Moki and Gobo and Red and
Boober.
all them. Boober, is that his name?
Boober. Yep.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've seen Fraggle Rock. And they show them like their own special holiday where they kind of pass around this one stone. And they said it's been passed around 37 times.
37 times.
So what they do mention that, last year I gave it to him and the year before that I gave it to them. So does that mean it's been passed around 37 years?
I think so.
See, because but then later, like she gives it to Boober, but then right away he gives it to Robin.
Maybe not. Maybe not. Years.
Yeah, because that's another thing that always made me wonder. Like, is it really 37 years? But then they just pass it on multiple times there. But anyway, so they teach them their game. They tell them a little bit, like very briefly about Christmas, and so then and they go back, and of course they sing that "Pass It On" song, which I love. But it's also very out of place in this special, It's out of place in this special. It's not at all out of place in Fraggle Rock. Yes.
It's a very Fraggle Rock song.
It's definitely a Fraggle song. But it just, with all the other Christmas and like the standards and everything, it just feels odd,
It is, but I'm glad it's there. Like, I've made it a standard in my house. I have it on our Christmas mix that we put on every year. So.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Nice. So, and I'll talk about it later when we get to it, but that big medley at the end, like I ended up ripping that, and so that's like a standard that we always, we got to play that, it's like 7 minutes long or something, but
something like that.
Yeah. So we listen to that whole medley every Christmas, which is nice. So yeah, they come back, and that's when Doc arrives with Piggy, and of course Doc is dressed like a Mountie, and I love how, again, it's kind of like this whole meta thing, like you were saying, where, he's like, I can't explain it. She just had this costume, it's like they actually talk to it, they actually refer to it. A whole
dog sled with a whole fleet of dogs. Classic Piggy.
And Kermit's just like, she knows how to make an entrance. Don't worry about it.
It's a good boyfriend. Just don't ask questions.
So are they boyfriend and girlfriend, or are they married here? I think they're just dating because in that Muppet show.
That's the running gag with Kermit and Miss Piggy. If you've ever seen Kermit on a talk show, he always kind of skirts the issue.
Yes, he does. Yeah. Fun fact, my brother actually got to sing with the Muppets.
What?
Yeah. He was doing a thing with like the New York one of the New York choirs, maybe they're Pops or something like that.
Oh, and
so he actually got to sing with them, which is really cool.
That's amazing.
I know. I was so jealous. Like, I want to meet the Muppets so bad.
That's like, you got to put that on your resume.
I'm sure he does.
I'm sure. If not, get it on there.
Yes, exactly. So then they go into that whole big carol sing, and that's where it gets into like the real, those old timey Christmas specials where, you're all just kind of sitting around singing songs,
Mm-hmm.
I think they even say it's like the annual, carol sing.
Annual carol sing.
Yep. And of course, then Kermit and Piggy, or Kermit gives Piggy her present, which is Maureen the mink. I'm your biggest fan. And Piggy's like excited because it's a mink, but oh no, it's really a mink.
It's an actual mink. Worship's the ground you walk on. That's a great bit. I really had that explained to me as a child. It's like, no, people would wear it's yep.
Yeah, it's they're they just have these play on words and all these cool little gags that they just kill every time. And of course, Doc shows up as Santa Claus, gives out presents, but then we get to the biggest cameo, which is Jim Henson himself.
Yes.
With the they seem to be having a good time. I like when they have a good time, kind of thing. And let's get these dishes done, which seems like a very Jim Henson thing, like, oh, okay, well, I'm glad that's going well. I'm going to go take care of this part now.
Yeah, he says, I like it when they have a good time.
Yeah.
I love the suit he's wearing. He's got this, it's almost like a Zubaz pants pattern jacket that he's wearing. It's a very Jim Henson style suit. He would always wear stuff like that.
Is it tweed? It might be tweed. I don't know, but
if it was, then it looked like it.
Yeah, and so then of course it kind of ends, and that's the whole special there. It's I really wish I had grown up watching it and not just caught like the ending, because I think it just would have made me love the Muppets even more.
Well, I mean, it's good that you've discovered this. If you discovered it as a young adult, great. So you still can make that an annual thing. There are so many things that I hadn't watched as a kid that I'm just discovering now.
Oh, I gotcha. Yeah.
What was one? I'm trying to think of an example, but half of the Rankin Bass specials I had not seen as a kid. We just recorded an episode recently on the Leprechaun's Christmas Gold.
Oh, that
is special.
It makes no sense.
It's in the rotation now because it's just something that I have to watch. This is my wheelhouse. So.
Yeah, same here. I mean, that one is odd, and Rankin Bass is already odd, but that one, I mean, even for Rankin Bass, that one makes no sense. You should interview. He's a friend of mine, Rick Goldschmidt, who's the official Rankin Bass biographer. Oh, he's the one that wrote that Enchanted World of Rankin Bass. Yeah. He wrote those books, The Making of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Making of Santa Claus is Coming to Town. I think he's got one on Frosty that came out. Okay. The Arthur Rankin scrapbook.
Wow.
There's another one. I think there's one on Mad Monster Party. So he's got several books on them, and they're really cool. They're really cool books. I know on one of your episodes, your guest was talking about the Enchanted World of Rankin Bass. Well, that's by him. Yeah, okay. It's on their I think it's like the 5th version or something, 5th edition.
All right,
the 20th anniversary special. But that's something you should check out. He's a cool guy. He comes to a lot of conventions and things like that, and I think you'd enjoy it. Yeah, but. Anyway, I'm hoping to get him on the show. We're eventually going to talk about Rudolph because, they showed it in the 80s, so I'm counting it. But,
it counts. They all count.
They all count, yeah. So I have to ask, if you can, what is your happiest memory of this special?
Ironically, it's watching it during the summer.
Really?
My mom used to offer daycare in our home, and one of the younger kids latched onto this specific special. And asked to watch Muppet Family Christmas constantly over the summer, and I was totally on board every time.
Heck yeah.
But as an adult and as a father, I usually put this special starting either Thanksgiving or Black Friday because that's when we put up our tree.
Yeah, same here. Black Friday. This past year, because this was the first year I'm working at the Christmas store, we couldn't put it up on Black Friday, so we ended up having to put it up on Thanksgiving night. And but this is definitely one that at least my happiest memory is watching it with my daughter for the first time, the oldest, and I mean she just loved it. So the other day, actually, it was about a week ago, because my wife's a teacher, so she's been teaching from home, and I had to watch the little ones, the 1-year-old and the 3-year-old. And so the other day I just thought, hey, let's watch it. So we just put it on, and of course the 1-year-old, she's 1, so she was just kind of all over the place. But the 3-year-old was just, sitting there just with his eyes wide open watching it. So I mean, it was fun getting to share that with him. So yeah, that was my happiest memory.
Very nice.
So now we come to the part of the show, which is always my favorite. This is what I like to call Gag Me with the Spoon. This is where we do our best impression of our least favorite part of the show. For me, I'm going to say right now, this was like ridiculously hard to pick a spot.
It was.
I ended up just picking a spot that I thought I could do best.
Okay. All right.
So I might have cheated at my own game, but that's okay.
Okay.
Now, I will let you, as the guest, go first. Just kind of set up the scene for us, and then you take it away. And the winner will get a Totally Rad Christmas sticker, unless I win, in which case I get nothing, because, I can just grab my own sticker. But listeners, if you want to write my name in the comments, I tell you what, I will send you a sticker as well. So,
hey,
but let's see. Let's check this out. All right, go ahead, good sir.
It was very hard to pick a least favorite part of this, but I went with poor Bert having to wear a nightgown for the night before Christmas pageant. So I'm going to do my best Ernie here.
Okay.
Come on, Bert. Somebody had to play Mama, and you lost the toss.
That was good. That was good. I enjoyed that.
Thank you.
It's going to be better than mine. I ended up going with Statler and Waldorf when they're heckling and they're heckling Fozzie. Let's see if I can do this. All right. These two comics were made for each other. The snowman's ice cold and the bear's not so hot. Oh, very man. Nice. They're so good. Those guys have always been my favorites. Who was it?
I'm glad someone thought to add those.
Yes. I think it still would have been great, but I think it would have just been missing that little something if they hadn't showed up, you know?
Yeah.
Which comic was it during their run? There was a comedian that showed up. It was during one of I think season 2 maybe. And he shows Fozzie how to like heckle the hecklers. Do you remember that one?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. It's right in the tip of my tongue. We're going to have to look this up.
Yeah, that's going to bug me. And so he's like, okay, go for the jugular. And he even, he like, and of course Statler and Waldorf were like, Is it Steve Martin? Is that who it was? Maybe.
Possibly.
Oh, I don't remember. I'm going to have to like watch all them now. Well, that's okay. I can definitely sit through Muppet shows again.
Oh, absolutely. That's one I had to introduce to my kids later, because when I tried to show my daughter the Muppet Show early on, she just spent the whole episode going, "Where's Kermit?" Yeah. It's kind of a hard sell because it is in that variety show format, and there's not really like a through line very often. Right.
And then just like some of the other Muppet things, there's a lot more adult humor in the show than I remembered. Yeah, right. I didn't remember that growing up. I just, like, haha, Muppet phones.
All went over my head.
Yeah, oh, totally, yeah. I just like the Muppet phones getting hit on the head, All right, Mike. So G.I. Joe, they taught us that knowing is half the battle. What do you think the other half of the battle is?
Keeping a cool head and also having a costume ready for your transportation when he arrives.
That is so crazy. I almost said that exact same thing.
Oh.
And I put it, I have it as a backup because I thought you were going to say this thing here, which is the other half of the battle is to be careful of the icy pads.
Too obvious.
So I kept that as a backup. No, that's good. I like that. Yeah, my backup was always have a spare Mountie uniform in case you're ever rescued during a snowstorm. But yep. Welcome back with Chatting with the Littles. I'm here with little number 1, my almost 8-year-old daughter. Do you remember Muppet Family Christmas?
Yes and no.
Yes, I know. That's okay. That's okay. What do you remember most about it?
The Kermit misses Miss Piggy.
The Kermit misses Mrs. Piggy, yes.
And then Miss Piggy is doing poses while she's talking on the phone.
That's true. It's at her photo shoot. Who's your favorite Muppet?
Miss Piggy.
Oh, yeah? Why?
Hi-ya!
That's why. Well, that's okay. That's a good reason. Oh, man. Anything else you want to tell me about your Muppets? Or the Muppet Family Christmas?
I don't really know what I would say if I did, but I don't have anything to say.
That's okay. All right. Well, let's get back to our regularly scheduled program. Oh, man, Mike, it's been great talking with you. Thanks for coming on. What do you want to plug?
Easiest way you can find me is on Twitter. I'm at Fall West Mike. My podcast is called The Advent Calendar House. It's a salute to all holiday specials, but mostly the Christmas ones. And it'll be back July 1st, counting down to Christmas in July, and that's at adventcalendar.house.
Right on. Yeah, you definitely check it out. It's funny. His guests are always amazing, and it's just something that now I really look forward to. So can't wait, man.
It's gonna be fun.
So again, thanks for coming on. And let me say, I like it when they have a good time. But tell you what, somebody would have to do something about these dishes, Sprocket. Oof. Come on, I'll wash, you dry, okay? Okay. And while we're doing that, check us out on our social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you're so inclined, leave us a review and get your name entered in our first rad contest for a chance to win some cool swag from the Christmas store where I work. Don't forget to vote, guys. Later, dudes.
What did you want to say?
That we should have a challenge, and the challenge would be to make your own Muppet puppet.
To make your own Muppet
Puppet.
puppet. Okay. Well, you heard it here first, folks. The challenge for this week is to make your own puppet.
Later, dudes and dudettes.